There are a ton of Persona 5 challenge runs out there already. At this point, almost everything that can be done has been done by somebody. I didn't want to go through this game one more time, so it was really hard coming up with something unique that people haven't seen so far. Persona 5, Royal especially, has so many things that can make the party overpowered. Even when you restrict your playstyle, so let's say only mandatory battles, not using items, banning certain things, you name it. But the majority of challenge runs out there usually only ban very specific things, which got me thinking, what if we ban pretty much the majority of things that can make you overpowered in this game? Is it still possible? Today we're going to find out if you can beat Persona 5 Royal when you ban pretty much everything that is considered useful. With that, let's check the rules because we got a lot of stuff coming up here. First of all, we're only going to do mandatory battles. If a battle is skippable, or it is a forced encounter which can be fleed, we're not allowed to do it. Battle difficulty, as always, is hard. I explained in previous videos why for me personally hard is harder than merciless, no pun intended. In Royal, hard also gives you slightly less experience compared to merciless, so in the spirit of keeping this a low level run, it is definitely the difficulty to go with here. Items are banned entirely. This means no usage in battle, and also no usage of items outside of battle. The only exception to this are going to be infiltration tools like lockpicks, vanish balls, smoke screens, that kind of stuff. Palaces must be completed in a single day. The exception to this are obviously palaces with forced exits like the Barry and Madarame's palace, but everything else must be done within a single day. We are allowed to let time pass before sending the calling card though, in case we still have to do some preparations. Max party members must be present in every battle, so for example we're not allowed to do certain battles using only Joker to maximize his experience. If any party member is down at the end of a battle, we have to redo it and make sure all party members are alive as well. Skill cards are also banned entirely. The only way to carry over skills to new personas is going to be via fusion. Because of that, Gallus is not allowed either, and while we're at it, we also ban persona itemization as well as lockdowns. We are also not allowed to go into Mementos before December the 24th. While we wouldn't be allowed to fight any battles anyways, we could use the first section of Mementos to grind items for money and materials, but we banned that too. We also ban fusion alarms, Velvet Room challenge battles, and everything that is related to any kind of DLC content. As always, New Game Plus is banned, as well as Tetrakarn and Makarakarn, Showtime attacks, and also Will Seed accessories. While the accessories are banned, we do allow SP regeneration on the first two will seeds, but since the last one is guarded by an enemy anyways, we will never complete them in the first place. We also ban SP regenerating accessories for maximum pain. We also ban activities outside of dungeons that can get Joker stronger, like the gym, the old temple, the jazz club, the billiard darts place, and also the laundromat. Last but not least, we also ban certain confident abilities, which include Chariot rank 7, which is Ryuji's insta-kill ability, Strength rank 5, which is the Twin Warden peak for fusing personas at a higher level than Joker, and Sun rank 10, which is Yoshida's ability to recruit personas which are above Joker's level as well. Okay, I think that is all. As you can see, we barely got any options, which will make for a very challenging and interesting run, so I'd say let's dive right into it. We go through the opening cutscenes, select our difficulty, and get to name our protagonist. Since I literally had no idea what name fits this run, I just went with Damn Brat, which makes for some rather interesting and funny dialogue throughout the game. Since the start is mostly cutscenes, we jump right into the first dungeon segment where Joker awakens to his persona. This is pretty much a casual playthrough at this point, with the exception that we dodged the two optional encounters on our second visit. Ryuji awakens to his persona, and the Allegor battle afterwards is nothing special. Work with weaknesses and strike down the enemy, all good so far. On the third visit, we get our persona tutorial with Pixie, and are also able to grab a bike horn on the fight afterwards, since this is another mandatory battle that you can't run from, so might as well use that to increase our persona stock. The fight against Belphegor is similar to Allegor before. At this point, it's still a casual playthrough for the most part, so nothing big to worry about here. We meet Beskar Takimi for the first time, but her clinic is pretty much useless since it mainly consists of items at this point and we're not allowed to use those anyways. We get the gun shop tutorial, but we're not going to buy anything for now. One positive thing about this run is that we can pretty much sell all the items, which makes for some nice pocket change, considering we're going to be lacking money throughout the entire run due to not battling any enemies at all. We get Ryuji to rank 2 and also start Takemi's confident before going back into the palace. Even though most of the confident traits are not very useful in this setting, we still want to get them up for the Arcana bonus during fusion. In a run like this, a level or 2 can already make quite a difference, so you still want to focus on your confidence. The prime example for this is the tutorial fusion once we go back into the palace. Thanks to Agaphion being a Chariot Arcana, he gets an additional level and also some little stat boosts. There are a couple of mandatory fights before the mini-boss, but the only one worth mentioning here is the second one where you get the tutorial for Desperate Personas. Thanks to this, we can recruit Jack-O-Lantern. Having a decent base of fusion material is pretty important since we will need those to fuse all kinds of other things we wouldn't be able to get otherwise. With that, we reach the first mini-boss Archangel with a whopping level of 5. Archangel has a very specific pattern in Royal. First he will charge, then cleave a party member, and then have a turn where he does nothing. We use Tarunda with Bicorn and guard with Anna on turn 1 since he likes to snipe her first and attack with the other party members. Even through the guard, he manages to almost one-shot her. Before the second cleave, we guard with everybody since the second hit seems to be random for the most part. Unfortunately, the attack debuff ran out right at that time, and the mini-boss one-shot Ryuji, so with our max party member rule, that is basically a reset already. We must have everybody alive at the end of the battle. We start attempt number 2 off the same way, though this time Archangel wanted to snipe Morgana, who luckily dodged the attack. This time we make sure to reapply Tarunda, and after Ryuji tanks the following hit, we're able to get the mini-boss down before he gets another attack in. The only 2 mandatory battles left at this point are the ones against the Eligurs in order to get the statue's eyes. For that we've used an Incubus for Dream Needle and the potential sleep that comes with it. An hasn't learned Dormina yet, and sleep makes those battles a lot safer. And this is exactly how we get through the first fight. Unfortunately, Dream Needle is not a guaranteed status proc, and the first 2 hits both don't manage to apply the status. Again, we get lucky though with Morgana dodging the attack, and the third one does manage to proc the ailment. At this point, we pretty much won anyways, so we complete the fight and get the party to level 6, with An being level 7. At this point she learns Dormina, which should make the second fight a lot safer. Fight 2 is similar to the previous one, though this time we make sure to keep sleep applied so the boss never gets an attack in, and that is all. The party reaches level 7, and this is going to be our final level before sending out the calling card. This is really unfortunate because we're just short of level 8 on Joker, at which level you could fuse an Oberian, which is the first persona to resist physical attacks. This would help tremendously against Kamoshida, but oh well, we have to find a way to get through it without it, I guess. With that, we send the calling card the following day and give the first boss a shot. Considering I was pretty sure we would have to change up some of the strategy, I made a separate save file in case we need to go back and change up a couple of things. We open up the battle with Tarunda and start going to work on Kamoshida. In phase 1 he only uses Volleyball Assault twice per turn, which can deal between 1 and 3 attacks on a party member, and with us being under-leveled already, the damage between a single hit and 3 hits is quite significant. Joker mostly uses Dream Needle while reapplying Tarunda every third turn, while Ryuji is on lunching duty. An and Morgana either throw out heals if necessary, or attack with their magic attacks as well. Once you get to phase 2, you have to attack the trophy. The following turn he will raise his attack with Lustful Slurp, and then alternate his attacks between Volleyball Assault and Golden Knife. Again, we debuff him with Tarunda since an unmitigated attack deals huge damage, and continue on trying to destroy the trophy. And this is the part where things already become tricky. Kamoshida loves to target the same party member with his attacks, especially Morgana, and if you get a 3-hit Volleyball Assault followed by Golden Knife, it's basically RIP. So yeah, there goes the first attempt. Generally, when Kamoshida raises his attack, there is a big chance of somebody going down, and yeah, this happens several times. Eventually, we manage to destroy the cup, which transitions into phase 3 of the fight. Kamoshida will now use a scripted Gold Medal Spike, which targets all party members. This attack has to be guarded, otherwise it's game over. With the guard, the incoming damage is manageable, but we're not done here yet. He will continue using that attack until either Shiho is down or he himself takes 300 damage. Considering we can't take any more spikes, we need to get through that within a single turn, and the only way to do this is by taking out Shiho since she's weak to literally everything. Unfortunately, I underestimated the damage we needed to do and decided to heal with On, which meant Shido was still up at the end of the turn, and the following spike wipes the party. We haven't even gotten to the last phase yet, and with all those issues we encountered so far, it was pretty clear to me that we needed to do some adjustments. We go back to the Velvet Room and fuse ourselves a Genbu. This one has decent endurance and also access to Rakunda, so we got both attack and defense debuff options now. We also went back to the gun shop and got a weapon upgrade on Joker. The plan here is to use the gun on Shido to deal some good damage and make sure we wipe her on the first turn already. That's not all though. In order to reduce the incoming damage, we also upgrade the entire party's armor. Even if this only reduces damage by like 5 or 6, it's already enough to help out since this does add up quite a bit throughout the fight. The Breath Ring on Morgana raises his max HP by 10%, which adds another extra layer of safety. Morgana is definitely the squishiest party member at this point, so this could be a good help as well. With those changes, we once again return to the palace and give Kamoshida another shot. While it does feel a bit more consistent, it can still easily go downhill. Even the new armor and added HP boost doesn't help when Kamoshida keeps targeting specific characters over and over again. After about 40 minutes of attempts, we made it back to phase 3 with Shido once again appearing in battle. We used a newly acquired gun, the Tom passed to Ryuji for an added lunge, and this time actually do enough damage to take out Shido, which takes us to the last phase of the battle. Now the question here is, do we go for the crown or not? At first I thought it's a good idea to go for it, and we sent Morgana since he's the squishiest member anyways. With Kamoshida doing good damage though, and on healing duty, I quickly realized that we can't do enough damage in time to knock down the crown. Because of this, I decided to just ignore the crown mechanic and whittle Kamoshida down manually, which quickly led to another problem. Due to the party not really doing a lot of damage, the fight takes relatively long, and with Choka only having 61 SP, we can only use Tarunda 7 times in the entire fight, which isn't nearly enough to get Kamoshida down. Sure, once he is in his last phase, he only uses Golden Knife once per turn anymore, but as soon as Choka's SP run out, both Morgana and An have to be on double duty to keep up with the healing, and eventually their SP are going to run out as well, so no matter how we do it, it seems there is no way around this. We are still very early into the game, so our equipment options are also very limited. If there was only a way to increase Choka's SP, we could drag this battle out a little longer, which might just be what we need in order to get through. Unfortunately, there is none. Or is there? I actually checked all my options again and found the solution in the Underground Mall in a shop where in 6 years of playing Persona 5, I have literally never made a purchase before, the 37 degrees Celsius shop. This one sells Chokas that increase your max HP or SP. The Chakra Choka only costs 5,000 yen, but only raises your SP by 10, so that would give Choka a total SP of 71. Just 1 SP short of being able to use Tarunda 9 times. The Mind Choka would increase his SP by 20, so with 81 SP we could do 10 Tarundas. While this option sounds much more like it could net us a win, there is a problem with it. The accessory costs 20,000, and with our equipment upgrades we need to do, we only got a little spare change left. Because of this, we take up the job at the supermarket and go work there for the next couple of days until we got enough money to make all the purchases needed. This has the extra side effect that Choka's charm also goes up alongside. And while we're already at it, we also upgrade the weapon of Choka and Morgana. An and Morgana will try to conserve their SP as best as somewhat possible, so instead of casting magic, they will do regular attacks. Because of this, we want to have the strongest weapon on everybody in order to make sure we can dish out maximum damage. We also switch over the Breeze Ring to An so she can use Garu as well. The damage isn't any different here compared to Agi, but Garu only costs 3 SP instead of 4, so that will save some SP overall as well. We also make some slight changes to a Persona fusion. Instead of relying on Genbu solely, I decided to also get a Saki Mitama and keep Tarunda on there. Saki Mitama is the first Persona with the Growth 1 passive, which we can pass on later, and it also learns Rakukaja on level 8, so this sounds like a better way to go ahead. While getting the amount of money needed, we also start the Confident with Sojiro. His perks are pretty much useless, but again we want to have an Arcana boost for possible fusions later. Once we got the last bits of money needed, We get the accessory and are off to face Kamoshida again, this time hopefully with some better results. Now, while we got the battle running here, let me quickly explain the new strategies. Joker will now open up with Rakunda and Tarunda on turn 2. The plan is to push Kamoshida into phase 2 before Tarunda runs out, where he will automatically raise his attack with Lustful Slurp. That way we can already save 8 SP by not having to apply Tarunda twice. Ryuji basically just keeps on lunging all the time unless the HP loss from lunge would put him into a HP range where he can be wiped. Ann uses magic in phase 1 and against the trophy, as well as Shiho. Otherwise she will heal if necessary or do regular attacks. Same goes for Morgana, and as you can see, this fight is still very luck dependent because if Kamoshida wants to, he can just do Volleyball Assault on Morgana twice in a row, and if you get unlucky with the hits, he will get wiped even from full HP. It took a couple of attempts, but eventually we get back to Shiho. Once again we take her out, and at this point the battle becomes a damage race. As long as Tarunda is up, we only need to heal once every turn. We switch the healing duty every other turn in order to keep both Morgana's and Ann's SP close to each other, because as soon as Joker runs out of SP and the Tarunda is gone, we're going to need both of them to keep up with the healing. Luckily Golden Knife does have a chance to miss, though it doesn't happen too regularly to rely on it. At this point we're getting closer to the win. Both Morgana and Ann are almost out of SP here. We do the last double heal of the battle, and at this point it's balls to the wall. Joker gets hit with a Golden Knife and we only have a single heal from Morgana left. Eventually I decided against healing since a single heal probably wouldn't be enough to keep Joker alive if he gets targeted again, so we used the last 3 SP of Morgana to cast another Garu, and it is just enough to take Kamoshida down. The party goes from level 7 to 9 and we are done with Palace number 1. Since I'm writing the script as I go through the run, I have the weird feeling that this might become a very long video if the run keeps on going like this. I already have over 2 hours of footage from just this fight, and I don't expect things getting any easier anytime soon. Since we got a couple of days left before the deadline, we used that to further up Ryuji's confidence and also work on the 27th for the extra money in the supermarket. We also continue building our confidence with Takemi since there isn't really that much other stuff to do at this point yet. During evenings, we either work on our social stats or hang out with Sojiro for the most part. We sell the gold medal to Iwai and get our first ailment gun as a return. Since it will be a while until we unlock gun customization, this one will be pretty useful since the shock can make some battles quite a bit easier. The party celebrates the victory, and we get to name our group, where I went with frustrating because that's exactly what the run at this point is already, and I'm sure it won't get any better anytime soon. We unlock Mishima's confidence and can now also start working on Ann's confidence a little more. Since we're now allowed to leave Young and Chaya during nighttime, we pick up the job at the restaurant and also get to meet Yoshida. At this point, the party also goes down Mementos for the first and only time before December 24th. The first request here is mandatory, so we go into the fight against Obarian. And this one was honestly quite a bit trickier than I anticipated at first. Obarian's Sledgehammer almost one-shots Ryuji from full HP, but luckily we can put it to sleep using Dormina and then use Tarunda before healing up the party. Once the party recovers, we start going to work and damage the enemy. Even with Tarunda up, the Sledgehammer still almost one-shots Morgana from full HP, so I decided to play it safe and keep it asleep for the most part when its attack is coming up. After that, it's only a couple of more turns until the enemy is down and the battle is won. The party goes all the way up to level 11, and this is going to be pretty useful for the next dungeon segment, but more on that once we get there. The following day we meet with Mishima and get his confidence to rank 2, and that is where he's going to stay for the rest of the challenge. Mishima's confidence is tied to Mementos requests, and since we're not allowed to do any of those, we can never level him up any further. This also means that backup party members are going to fall behind on levels even more as the run progresses, so ideally we want to be set on our main party relatively early into the run without having to experiment around too much. We continue working on the party members' confidence and also start up Yoshida now. Just like Sojiro, his perks aren't necessarily useful for the run, but the fusion bonus from the Arcana might come in pretty handy. Dr. Maruki joins the school, And we also get the first 2 confident ranks on him as well. As mentioned in previous runs, his confident is technically the only one you have to max in order to get the real exclusive content later on, so we want to try and get that done early too. At this point, we meet Yusuke and get everything set up for dungeon number 2. We buy new equipment for the party, mainly armor for defense, and then are off into the museum. Now, there isn't really much worth to mention about the first section since there is literally not a single fight that we have to do. The only battle that's forced on the party is the introduction to treasure demons, but we can just run from that one. After running into the barrier, we visit the Velvet Room one more time before leaving the palace in order to fuse a slime. Slime has physical resistance and great endurance, which is going to help quite a bit in the upcoming mini-boss battle. While it is weak against both fire and wind, it won't matter for the parts where we're gonna need it. Yusuke tries to get Anna out of her clothes the following day, while Choka and Ryuji in the meantime try to deactivate the barrier in the palace where they run into Nue. Honestly, this was a mini boss fight that I was quite scared of at first, but with Slime it shouldn't be such a big issue. We started off using Tarunda and also buffed Choka's attack with Ryuji. Ryuji manages to dodge the Skullcracker and the normal attack barely does any damage. After putting on Rakunda, we start using Agi with Slime and that's all there is to that fight. Ryuji gets a lucky crit and we're already done again after Baton Pass. Yusuke ends up in the palace, awakens to his persona, and we now have to fight Ippon Datara and a couple of Kappa Tengus. The Kappa Tengus are weak against ice, so Yusuke with Bufu is doing a good job getting some damage in and also manages to let on crit against Ippon Datara with Giant Slice. The following all-out attack is already enough to wipe all the Kappa Tengus, and luckily An manages to dodge the attack because I am pretty sure this would have been a one-shot otherwise. We put up Tarunda, Yusuke manages to let another crit, and An dodges yet another attack before we can finish the enemy off for good. Not going to lie, we got incredible luck on this encounter. Ippon Datara not managing to get a single hit in, plus the party critting left and right made this battle a lot easier than it should have been. But I'm not going to complain about that. In the Velvet Room, we fuse Akushi Mitama in order to rank up Maruki faster. Conveniently, it also comes with media, which we're going to need anyways, so this adds up quite nicely. In order to start off the Twin Warden's Confidant, we also fuse a Jack Frost. Similar to before, we're going to need one for Mabufu later on anyways, so might as well already do it now. We get Ryuji to rank 7 to unlock his insta-kill ability, which we're not allowed to use anyways, and are back into the palace the following day. This is also the first time we have to bench a party member. Like mentioned earlier, we can't advance Mishima, therefore backup party members are going to get a lot less experience, so you should carefully choose which party you want to use moving forward. In the end, I decided to stick with the starting party for now. Yusuke is probably not going to see a lot of use in this challenge, for the main reason that we won't be able to unlock his confidant at all. During his first rank, you have to fight a group of slimes, which we're not allowed to do, so he will never get his confidence started to begin with. Because of this, I am pretty sure this is the right call for now. Who knows if I might regret that later. Anyways, we're heading into the first mini-boss fight against Kurama Tengu, and this is where Choka's new gun comes in real handy. We managed to stun all 3 enemies with Choka's gun, and with that the battle is already pretty much won. We get rid of the Kappa Tengus quickly, and then take care of the mini-boss using technical hits to deal some nice extra damage. Mini-boss fight number 2 is against 3 Makamis, and I'm not even sure you can even call this a boss fight, since Ryuji just knocks all 3 of them down with Seo, and we follow it up with an all-out attack. Do that twice, and the battle is already over again. Choka and Ryuji get to level 13, and yeah, this is going to be our level for the next boss fight, and I am very much afraid of this one. Before we head in there though, we still have a couple of things to do. We return to the Velvet Room and fuse an Ippon Datara. It has good stats, great endurance, and also repels wind, which could be very useful in the upcoming boss fight. We also get ourselves an Amino Usume. This one is mainly important for access to AoE spells. With Jack Frost, we can hit 3 out of the 4 elements in phase 2 of the boss fight against Madarame with AoE attacks. Once all preparations are done, we head back into the palace, switch out Morgana for Yusuke, and start off the second big boss fight of the game against Madarame. Going in, I expected this to be a huge RNG nightmare, and I wasn't too far off on that one. For phase 1, the plan is going to be to get rid of the right eye as quickly as possible since it loves to target weaknesses, and with the way our party is set at the moment, it can easily wipe a party member within a single turn, causing a restart. And that's exactly what happened on attempt number 1. A single Bufu is enough to one-shot On from full HP and already end the attempt before it even gets anywhere. This is going to be a recurring theme in this boss fight. Around 80% of all attempts end on turn 1 before I even get the chance to set up anything. But that's not even all. Even if you get lucky with the eye, the nose can still easily end your attempt if it decides to double target Ryuji, since he's weak to wind, so yeah, this fight is pretty much get lucky or game over. Anyways, on to the actual battle strategy. My first plan was to Tarokasha Yusuke since he's dealing the most damage and hoping to get the right eye down before it can get a second attack in. Unfortunately, most of the time this doesn't really work out all too well, which leads into more game overs. The right eye is definitely the most dangerous part of the battle, so getting rid of it as quickly as possible is going to be vital for phase 1. Joker's job is either assisting the other party members in getting rid of the right eye or healing up the party with media. Once it starts reviving, Ryuji comes in really handy. The revive usually happens right before his turn, and his headbutt does just enough damage to knock the part down again with a single hit. An for the most part is on Tarunda duty during the whole fight, while also throwing in a Dia every now and then when it's needed. The order in which we want to take down the portrait is starting off with the right eye, followed by the nose, since those two are definitely the most dangerous parts. Afterwards, it's mostly keeping those two parts down, while also focusing on the left eye. At some point we will get to the part where we can pour paint over Madarame, which is pretty much the end of phase 1, since the portrait will be weak to literally anything afterwards, and getting rid of them is rather easy. But if you thought the hardest part is over, I have to disappoint you. In phase 2, Madarame summons 4 copies to the field, and while those usually don't deal that much damage, they can still easily hit party members' weaknesses and wipe them. At first I thought we can deal the most damage to Madarame if we only knock down 1 copy and baton pass over to Yusuke since he can get like 3 powered up hits in that way every single turn. While that isn't necessarily wrong, the bigger issue here are the copies. With that strategy, all copies are alive by the end of the turn, and as you can see, this doesn't end well for our party, and we get our first game over on phase 2. And just to show you how much of an RNG fest this fight is, we haven't made it back into phase 2 another time in the next hour of attempts. Because of that, I made some slight changes to the start of the battle. Instead of buffing Yusuke with Joker, Joker now attacks the right eye with Ippon Datura. While this does mean that Yusuke himself is doing less damage, the overall damage is slightly higher and we have a better chance to beat the right eye before its second attack. Another thing that I want to mention here is, in the rare case where we actually make it towards phase 2, it is very important to have both Joker's and Yusuke's attack buffed once the transition happens. For phase 2, we now have a different strategy. Joker starts off using Rakunda on Madarame, and then we build a fully powered baton pass for Yusuke to deal big damage. An important thing here is that during the first round of baton passes, An targets the Wind Weak copy, and Joker uses Jack Frost's Mabufu to hit 3 targets in total before Yusuke gets his big shot in. This lets An target the Fire Weak one during her regular turn. This time, however, we're not going to pass over to Yusuke, but to Joker. The buffed Mabufu is just enough to get rid of both the Ice and Wind Weak copies, while also dealing damage to Madarame himself. With that, the boss is almost down to half HP after the first turn already, and we also only have 2 enemies that could potentially attack us the following turn. While this doesn't guarantee anything, it does make the battle just a tiny bit safer. The problem is that the 2 copies still alive love to target An and Ryuji's weaknesses, but luckily for me, in this attempt both of them did survive. Here's where I made a fatal mistake though. I probably should have gone balls to the wall and tried to beat Madarame before they get the next turn. Instead, I switched over to Ame no Usume and decided to heal the party. Combine that with Ryuji missing with Seo and therefore missing out on another baton pass, and yeah, while we did get a lot closer to actually beating the battle, this attempt was over unfortunately soon after. The strategy at this point looks to be pretty promising though. We need to hope that no party member gets wiped and just go all out and try to beat Madarame within 2 turns. So far so good. Now we only need to actually get back into phase 1 again to begin with. After game overing a few more times, we made it back after roughly 15 minutes of more attempts. This time though, I made another mistake. Ryuji was still coated in paint from phase 1, therefore not being able to baton pass, and yeah, needless to say there was no way to win the fight that way. As you can see though, all of that didn't even matter, since the copy just decided to wipe on, and there is nothing I could have done about that anyways. For the next attempt, it only took us another 5 minutes of game overing before we made it back into phase 2, so the change in strategy certainly seems to make phase 1 slightly more consistent. Anyways, this time I made sure that nobody was coded during transition. We go through the same strategy again, and just like before, An gets wiped. Okay, so by now I think you got a good idea of all the things that can and will go wrong in this battle, so let's just skip forward to the one where we eventually got a bit luckier. After roughly another hour of attempts, we once again made it back into phase 2 and go through turn 1 like always, using Yusuke to deal big damage and Joker to take out 2 of the 4 copies. This time the copies actually cooperated and all party members were still alive at the end of their turn. Another thing I forgot to mention earlier is that in this scenario, Madarame will always summon Fire Weak doppelgangers to replace the 2 that we wiped earlier. We use that to our advantage to pass the baton around again and deal even more damage with Yusuke, and with the last hit in the second turn, we are able to take Madarame down and complete Palace number 2 for good. Joker gets level 15 and we're able to continue on. Here I was thinking that Kamoshida was already a huge problem, but compared to Madarame, he was quite a bit easier. The worst thing in this boss fight was definitely the amount of RNG and pure luck needed to even outlive the very first turn. And while I am not expecting this to become a breeze anytime soon, I do hope that the next 2 boss fights won't be as much of a pain as the first 2 were. Since we have some downtime now again, we use that to further increase our confident ranks with our party members. We also unlocked a confident with Best Girl Kawakami, though we won't request her that often in the beginning. Each call costs 5,000 yen, and money is pretty tight so far. This is also the point where I would unlock the confident for Yusuke. Like mentioned previously though, his rank 1 requires you to complete a battle in Mementos, and since we're not allowed to do that, we can't even start his confident to begin with. We do however unlock Kasumi's confident at this point, and while we won't get her past rank 5 until later in the game, we will still try to get her up quickly since every rank grants Joker an additional 5 max HP as well. Ryuji at this point is already at rank 8, which grants him Endure. Considering that every party member going down in battle is an automatic reset at this point still, this does make things slightly easier in case things go wrong. We also unlock Kichiuchi at this point, but there isn't really much to see here. I was hoping to get the Daten spell to the second-hand clothing shop, but since we're not allowed to grind, we don't really have a lot of equipment that we can sell off here. We get the tutorial for the darts minigame, and while we're never going to come back in here again, unfortunately you cannot prevent the first baton pass rank up for Ryuji and Joker from happening. The party meets Pancake-kun, and we unlock his confident as well. While Akechi doesn't need to be maxed to unlock the optional content, we will still do it since it does unlock some extra dialogue which kinda belongs to the royal ending as well. At this point of the game, Best Girl Makoto is already blackmailing us for more information, and we end up in Palace number 3. After how this run has gone up to this point, I was moderately afraid of the upcoming battles here, but let's take a look into them. We try to stun both Omis with Joker's ailment gun, get one stun on, and put the second one to sleep. Once again, we use technical hits to deal some decent damage, and get rid of the first one rather easily, but unfortunately the falling rampage from the second only takes out An and Yusuke. On attempt number 2, I played it a little more careful. Again we stun one of them, and put the second one to sleep. Even though the second Oni woke up early, we got a bit lucky with no one being wiped. Ryuji's Endure is kicking in here, so raising the party members' confidence early definitely paid off. For the second wave, we work with more sleeps and also get a lucky stun proc with Ryuji. After putting on Tarunda, the rampage is not that dangerous anymore and we can continue doing damage until both of them are down. Makoto awakens to her persona, and now we have to go through 2 more Oni and a Suiki. Unfortunately, Makoto replaced An in this setup, so Choka is the only one that can put on sleep with Dormina now. This doesn't really matter though, since Makoto can not only hit the weakness of Suiki with a nuke magic, she can also put the Forget status on the enemies. Ryuji gets another lucky shock proc on the enemy and we start going to work. We get a lucky triple baton pass up and Choka can wipe both Onis with Mabufu. Unfortunately, I forgot that Suiki drains ice, but luckily this is not a big issue anymore since once he's by himself, he can't really do much anymore and we can easily control the incoming damage with status ailments. Just a couple of attacks later, Suiki is down as well and the battle is already over. Unfortunately, Yusuke is the only party member to gain a level from this fight, but I'm not going to complain too much about that. Back in the airsoft shop, I was looking for new armor for the party, but unfortunately we barely have any money left at this point, so the plan was to tackle the dungeon and hopefully get through it without any upgrades. Once we're done here, the money we gain from the dungeon should be enough to upgrade our equipment for the boss if necessary. We return to the palace and get the tutorial for showtime attacks here. Since those are banned as well, this will be the only time those will be used in the challenge. The first forced encounter is against a set of Aura boss, but those are rather easy. Just throw out Mabufu and follow up with an all-out attack. 2 of those are already enough to win here. There is another forced Oni fight here and also the 2 fights against Fuki and Suiki, but I'm not going to go into details here since it's the same as always. Apply ailments and go to work until you win. The next interesting fight is the first real mini-boss of this dungeon against Fuki, Suiki and Kinki, and this one got me quite in some trouble. The biggest issue here is that we're lacking somebody with access to Mataronda or decent AoE status effects. In my first attempt, I tried to build up a nice baton pass and deal some damage, but I quickly found out that this was not going to work. Fuki likes to Tarokasha Kinki, and if he gets off a single Vara blast, it's game over. We almost didn't even get that far though, since Suiki's Mabufula already does tons of damage to the party. Kinki follows up on that, and attempt 1 is already dead. I'm not going to go through every single attempt here since I'm pretty sure this video will get rather long already, so let's just quickly go through the strategy that eventually got us through this fight while you watch me game over several more times. Fuki will always Tarokasha Kinki on turn 1, so we put Forget on Kinki with Makoto and then put Suiki to sleep with Choka or An, depending who gets the last action before its turn. We will then try to get a technical hit on Suiki and get a baton pass going to deal some good AoE damage. The plan is to keep all 3 of them locked down with some sort of status ailment while we're trying to take them out. Choka's ailment gun once again is a very good utility weapon for that as well. Once both ads are taken care of, the fight becomes much easier. Kinki is incredibly bulky, so it takes quite a while to get his HP down. This is also the reason why I switched over to Shock or Forget later on instead of Sleep, so he won't heal back HP every single turn. With a Taronda up, his damage is manageable for the most part. Even Vira Blast is usually not doing enough damage to take any party members out. With that, we slowly whittle his HP down and eventually win the fight. The party goes to level 18 and Ryuji also learns Rampage, so we finally got some decent means of putting out AoE physical damage as well. With that level, we also immediately go back to fuse one of the most OP early demons in the game, Shikiuchi. This one nulls all physical damage and also Bless and Curse, with its only weakness being Nuke. We mostly carry over physical skills as well as Mazio, since I thought Shock is probably the status ailment that comes in handy the most, and that was a very good call as you will see later on. The last mandatory battle is against the mini-boss Companda. In my first attempt I got rather unlucky since Dormina missed and the following bloodbath already wiped on. In general though, you can control the battle pretty well using status ailments. A combination of sleep and stun is good enough to keep him locked down and do decent damage to the enemy. Afterwards, it's just a couple of more attacks and we're already done, and that's all there is to that dungeon. With level 18 on the party and Makoto on 22, we will go up against the next big boss of the game. In the airsoft shop, we sell off our dungeon loot to upgrade everyone's armor again. This time it's important to keep the items though, not for personal use, but for the mechanic in the upcoming boss fights. Afterwards, we sent the calling card and are back into the palace for boss fight number 3. After the mess that was Kamoshida and Madarame, I was really hoping that this one would be quite a bit easier, but let's see for ourselves. Phase 1 of the Kaneshiro fight starts with the party fighting Piggytron. We immediately put Taronda and also Rakunda up and start going to work. His first couple of attacks, while hitting hard, can be healed up relatively well. Once he starts spinning, we guard with the entire party, and the incoming damage is not as bad as I expected it to be. In order to prevent him from doing March of the Piggy again, we throw a very valuable item at him. This is the reason why I didn't want to sell off any items early in the gun shop. Now, I know you can argue whether or not this counts as an item use, but honestly, it's a mechanic in this fight and we don't use the item on the party and also don't use it to directly attack the enemy, so I think this should be fine. At this point, he usually starts switching between Fear Gas, which can fear the entire party, and Missile Party and Metabolic Wave, which are both AoE attacks. As long as they're on the up, the incoming damage is manageable with heals. The bigger issue here is that due to our low level, we barely do any damage to the boss. It also doesn't help that we're getting rather unlucky with our rampage attacks, where a lot of the times we only get a single hit out of the potential 3. The first attempt eventually ended due to unlucky fear procs, where I wasn't either able to heal up properly or not able to apply Taronda within time again, which resulted in one or more party members going down. While this was unlucky, this shouldn't be such a big issue in general, and in our second attempt we already made it into phase 2, where he will now summon 2 guards that protect Kaneshiro. And here is where I noticed an even bigger issue. Phase 2 opens up with Kaneshiro using Lullaby before we can get a single action in, and if you get unlucky, this puts the entire party to sleep and pretty much guarantees somebody going down. This is a huge issue and could become just as big of an RNG train wreck that we had in the previous boss fight against Madarame. Now, there is an accessory called Caffeine Patch which gives the character resist sleep, but a resist is not a guarantee either. But before even going back and buying those to try out, I had another idea in mind which may sound a little insane at first, and it involves a mechanic from phase 1. Towards the end of phase 1, I was intentionally stalling out until Fear Gas happened, which pretty much feared the entire party. Joker immediately recovered, and that was just what I wanted. We switch over to Shikiuchi and push the boss into phase 2. Now, since you can't override status elements in this game and almost everybody has fear on them, sleep is guaranteed to miss. Joker luckily didn't get hit, and with Shikiuchi we can now try to use Masio to stun the bodyguards. You need to incapacitate the guards somehow to directly damage Kaneshiro. Unfortunately, Masio didn't stun anybody, but the party powered through the fear and we were able to put sleep on one guard at least. Another big help here is that the enemies are more likely to target sleeping party members, and with Shikiuchi equipped, Joker is not going to take any damage from them. Eventually, we were able to get both sleep and shotgun, and this made the battle quite a bit easier already. We also managed to get Forget on Kaneshiro himself, so he won't be able to put the party to sleep that often anymore. Still, the fight can be quite the hassle since the statuses usually only last for a single turn before the enemies recover. At this point, it becomes a matter of keeping elements up while also damaging Kaneshiro. And considering the first phase with Piggytron took rather long, SP and most party members are also relatively low already. Another good thing is that we managed to get burn on Kaneshiro, meaning that every time he attacks, he's losing another 100 HP. Once he starts to use Make It Rain, we absolutely have to make sure that the guards are not able to attack, since they can easily wipe a character in this situation. And that is pretty much all for this fight. We continue keeping the guards down with statuses and do more damage on Kaneshiro until the guards eventually run away. At this point the battle is pretty much won, and just a couple of attacks later, Kaneshiro is down. The party goes to level 21, and we're able to continue on with this run. While this fight was quite trolly as well, it was nowhere near as bad as the first 2 boss fights were, and I hope this trend continues on into the next dungeon, but we will see once we get there. Since we got some downtime now again, we use the days to further enhance our confidence. We unlock Makoto and also Best Girl Hifumi and continue on with our other confidence as well. We're starting to get to the point where we max out the first couple of them though, since the majority of non-party confidence require Mementos request after rank 7 or 8, and since we're not allowed to do those, well, we can't get them up any further anymore. We also reach rank 9 with An, at which point we're going to waifu her. Considering the only romance options in this run are party members, since we literally can't get there with any other female confidence, we only got a few select members to choose from. After already romancing Makoto and Haru in the past 2 challenge runs I did, this means that the only option left for this playthrough is An. On days where none of the confidants are available, we continue working at the supermarket or at the flower shop in order to get some more money. Money is still rather tight, and I doubt that is going to change anytime soon. We also unlocked the jazz club during Akechi's rank 4, but we won't come back here since we're not allowed to use it anyways. We max out both An and Ryuji, and at this point we're ready to head into the next dungeon of the game. The first mandatory battle here is against the Garuda and went pretty smooth. Again we work with status elements and try to use technical hits on the boss, and only a couple of hits later, the battle is already won. The party gains another level, and we're on towards the next mini-boss of this dungeon, the first of 2 mod fights. While this encounter may give anybody who played Nocturne some PTSD, this battle isn't nearly as bad here, even with our restrictions in place. Once again we work with, you might have already guessed it, status ailments. Both sleep and forget work exceptionally well, but ideally we want to get a shock on the boss for continued technical hits. The damage we do here is rather low, but with the status ailments we can keep the boss under control pretty well, and after pummeling on mod for quite a bit, we win on our first attempt. This time Choker even gains 2 levels, and we head into mod fight number 2. Unlike the first fight, mod comes with 2 adds this time around, which we can actually use to our advantage to hit weakness hits and pass the baton for some nice extra damage. Once the adds are gone, we're pretty much going for the same strategy as in the previous fight. Keep mod down with status ailments, and go to work until the fight is over and won. Nothing special here really. Unfortunately, we don't get any level ups here, so we have to go into the next boss fight at level 24. And that is all for Best Girl Futaba's Palace. Back in the real world, we sell off our dungeon loot again, but this time we don't even upgrade our armor. Considering the upcoming boss is probably the easiest in the entire game, I wanted to check if we can beat it without doing any extra upgrades in order to save some money. Now for the boss fight against Wakaba herself. Phase 1 is pretty much scripted in that Choker only needs to survive until the cutscene happens, and Futaba awakens to her persona. Phase 2 is where the real battle starts. Thanks to Futaba, we can reflect a lot of the incoming damage right back at the boss before sending on to the ballista. The reason I went with her here was I wanted to buff both Choker and Ryuji's attack to maximize our damage output once she gets shot down. There are only a couple of reflects that Futaba can do, and we're not necessarily very tanky, so ideally we want to take Wakaba out before she gets a chance to attack the party. She also takes 5 times damage from physical attacks, which is why I went with Choker and Ryuji to deal the big damage here. And while Makoto had to be revived, we were still able to get a good amount of damage in. Once Wakaba is back in the air, we got 1 more reflect left, but luckily at this point she's almost done already. The winning hit was literally the last action of the turn, and I am pretty sure Wakaba would have started wiping party members right afterwards, so while it was rather close, it went just the way I had it planned, and we're actually able to beat a boss on our very first attempt. We get a ton of experience, which takes the party all the way to level 30, and continue on with the game. We're finally able to start the confidant with Hawaii, and also Best Girl Chihaya, and here is where I made a rather big mistake. For some reason I thought we can get Chihaya up to rank 7 as well, but it turns out in order to unlock her, you need to clear another Mementos request as well. Unfortunately, I only remembered that after already paying 100k for the Holy Stone, and I haven't saved in over 2 weeks in-game time, so I just took the loss since I didn't really feel like going all the way back again. At this point, we're working quite often since we're having more and more free time, so overall, it probably won't matter too much in the long run. We also max out Yoshida, who, by the way, is the only non-party member confidant that you can max without having to clear a Mementos request first. We're not allowed to use his rank 10 ability, but it's still something, right? At this point Futaba is back up as well, so we also start her confidant. Unlike every other party member though, she is tied to a Mementos request, so we can only get her up to rank 7. This also means that she's the only party member to not get a third awakening in the royal part later on either. Since we unlocked Akihabara, we could now also start the confidant with Shinya, but once again, in order to do that, you have to trigger a Mementos request, so Shinya and the Tau Arcana won't be unlocked at all either. Other than that, it's the same as in previous downtimes. Hang out with confidants, and work if nobody's available during that time. We spent the Hawaii trip with our waifu An, and shortly afterwards are quickly upgrading our armor before getting ready to tackle the next dungeon, with the first fight being against Haru's fiancé. The fiancé is only weak to Psy magic, so after knocking him down with Haru, we switch her out and bring Makoto back for our classic A team. The fiancé is actually not that big of a deal, but the ads are rather annoying since they like to spam Reconsidered when getting low on HP. Ideally, you want to take both of them out before they get the chance to do that. Once the mini-boss is by himself, he can't really do a lot anymore. Since he's rather bulky, the fight takes quite a while, but we were never in any real danger, and after what feels like an eternity, we win the battle, the party goes to level 33, and we continue on. The next set of mandatory battles revolve around the robot chiefs, and this one is much more annoying than I first anticipated, but let's look into it, shall we? Every chief comes with 2 ads, and just like in the previous fight, they like to spam Reconsidered once they get low on HP. This time we're extra careful in knocking them out before that happens. Once the ads are gone, the chief will spawn new ones, but at this point the first chief is pretty much done, and after a few more attacks we win battle number 1 and gain another level. Chief number 2 is where things get a little trickier, not because of the chief itself, but because the ads suddenly start to spam things like triple down and assault dive, which do huge damage due to our level, and yeah, we actually game over here. Not going to lie, I was not expecting that. Since Choker doesn't have any good fire options at the moment, we summon a Leon and Shido that we've used earlier in order to assist Ahn getting rid of the ads quicker. On attempt number 2, only Ahn got hit with triple down, but survived thanks to Endure, and we make sure to take the ads out. This time the Reconsidered actually kind of helps since it leaves the enemy at 1 HP, so we can easily take them out one by one. I also realized that the ads are weak to wind, just like the chief, so yeah, this would have been much more manageable had I noticed earlier, but it's whatever. We take out the chief, and the last ad falls shortly afterwards. The last chief comes with 4 ads, and now it's starting to get even more dangerous. Not only that, but the chief himself also knows Swift Strike and Mataronda, so yeah, the first attempt is quickly thrown after getting that kind of luck on the first turn. Attempt number 2, while going a bit better, is still quite the hassle. Triple down does huge amounts of damage, but we're slowly starting to whittle the ads down before another Swift Strike seals the deal. On attempt 3, we got a bit luckier with the ads mostly doing single target attacks. This time we were able to take all 4 ads out early, which made the battle much more manageable. The chief still resummons them occasionally, but it's much easier dealing with 2 enemies instead of 5. We start doing damage to the chief now using Psy magic, and also try to keep the ad in check. All out attacks are doing a surprisingly good amount of damage here, so we use those to conserve SP. As you might be able to tell, Choker and Ahn especially are really low on SP, and we need to conserve at least some since there is another mandatory battle coming up later in the palace. Mindfulness on Choker is a lifesaver, and after triggering twice in a row, Choker is back up and we can deal with the last bits of the battle and eventually win. We get another level up, and Ahn also finally gets access to Maruki, which should make things much easier. I was expecting this part to give me issues, but I didn't think we'd have that many problems. Luckily there is only a single mandatory fight left, which is against the robot army, and this one is more annoying than anything else. While the robots don't do a lot of damage, they love to spam debuffs like Mataronda and Masukunda, making it really hard to deal damage to them. Combine that with Psy magic being their only weakness, and them resisting everything else, this is quite the pain. We open up by casting Marakunda to decrease the defense, and then try to hit all of them with Mopsy. And yeah, that is pretty much the entire strategy for the fight. There really is nothing more to say on this. Since there are 3 waves of robots, Choker eventually runs out of his P again, so we are relying on a lucky mindfulness to continue on and eventually win the fight. We get to level 36, and this is the level we have to fight Okumura at, and to be honest, this was probably the boss I was most scared of in this kind of setup, but more on that in a few. As most of you know, the fight consists of several different waves you have to get through. Wave 1 really isn't a big issue. It's the same robots we already fought earlier in the palace, and considering we got a couple of levels since then, Ahn can easily dispose them with a nice double Maruki after Choker lowered the defense. Wave 2 is weak to ice, so we use Mabufu and Choker and also buff our attack. Ice is one of the few elements we don't have on our A team, so Choker has to handle this. At this point, Okumura himself also starts getting turns by either debuffing the party's defense or buffing one of the robots with Rakukaja. Slightly more annoying, but still no big issue so far. Wave 3 is weak to nuke and electricity. After decreasing their defense, we use nuke magic with Joker, pass over to Ryuji, knock them down with electricity, and then Makoto takes care of the rest. All good so far. Wave 4 is weak to wind and blast, which is why we've used the Mitras earlier, since it has good elemental coverage, plus a passive boost on it. A double Makuga is enough to take them out and enter the last wave. And those big boys are where things start to get tricky. They are weak to Psy and Curse. Both elements we don't necessarily got good coverage on. And to make things even worse, they are really bulky. One of them exploded right off the bat though and wiped the party, so no need to even go further with that for now. On our next attempt, we made it right back again. Considering my elemental coverage isn't necessarily the best, my plan was to try to get technical hits in order to get a multi-person baton pass, which is hopefully enough to take them out with Joker. And while that is a good plan in theory, it didn't quite work out like I wanted it to. Due to us not being allowed to level up our technical rank, a knockdown is not guaranteed, which makes baton passing pretty hard. Joker isn't even close to doing enough damage and the robots flee, therefore respawning the wave. Eventually, one of the robots exploded again and it's another game over. We went for another attempt right afterwards, but it really was the same for the most part. With a technical hit not guaranteeing a knockdown, this strategy seems to be way too inconsistent. And even if it worked, I'm not sure Joker would even do enough damage to wipe them all out in time before they start running away again. While we did get closer this time compared to the previous attempt, it was still not enough, and eventually we ran out of SP, where I ended up throwing the fight. At this point, I was starting to become a little bit desperate, since even with a huge amount of luck, I'm not sure we could get through this fight with our current setup. But luckily I found a very good solution for that, and if you paid attention to the game's footage, you probably already know where I'm going with this. While the robots resist all elements except the ones they're weak to, in Royal, all of them take neutral damage from guns. And while we don't have access to any personas with triple down yet, we actually have just gotten a party member with exactly that skill, and obviously I'm talking about Haru. Not only does Haru have access to triple down, she's also able to cast Psy Magic, which is the weakness of the wave that we got stuck on. And just looking at how this battle went, it definitely paid off. Haru is already a huge help in earlier waves, especially in combination with Ryuji shocking enemies and Haru hitting technicals off of them with triple down. Once we made it back to wave 5, strategy is similar as before. Ryuji tries to shock enemies and Joker knocks them down with Psyodyne before passing over to Haru, who gets the maximum amount of damage in with triple down. And while this doesn't guarantee me a victory here, chances have drastically increased at this point. After the first attempt failed and they ran away yet again, we finally make it through on the second try. Now we advance to the biggest boy, which is pretty much the last dangerous stage of this fight. Since he's weak to several ailments, my plan was to shock and or freeze him and take him out before he even gets a chance to act. And that did work out pretty well, as we were able to land the lucky shock proc on the very first attack. We start going to work and do pretty decent damage, hitting technicals left and right. Once the shock wears off, he charges up his special attack, so we need to put some kind of ailment back onto him. Ryuji doesn't hit the shock, Makoto misses with Forget, which is probably due to the hunger status, and with Joker not being able to get a freeze on the enemy, we get hit by the Big Bang challenge, and at this point it's RIP. What a combination of good luck on the first proc and terrible luck trying to land a second one. The very next attempt didn't even make it back to the big boys, since once again we got an explosion into our face. While Haru does prove to be a huge help, even with triple down, it's not guaranteed we make it all the way through. Anyways, on the very next attempt, we're back again trying to land ailments. Just like before, we get the shock proc on the first attempt and start going to work. One shock runs out, he charges up again, and while Ryuji couldn't get another shock in, Makoto was able to land a Forget. Futaba comes in with a clutch AoE Heat Riser, and Ryuji lands a lucky crit. The baton pass to Joker and the following attacks are enough to wipe our big boy, and with that, the battle is basically won. We guard Robo explosion, and a single hit takes out Okumura, completing the palace and the one boss I was probably most afraid of. And while this was by no means easy, I would probably still rank this one behind both Kamoshida and Madarame. As always with challenges of these types of games, they tend to become a little easier the more options you get, even when you bam pretty much all of them like we do here. We gained 2 more levels, hit level 38, and got some downtime now again. With the exception of Futaba and Akechi, we are already pretty much maxed out all possible confidence as far as we can go without having to complete the requests, so if one of them is available, we hang out with them, otherwise we just continue working to stack up some more money. We also discover an unknown palace, and Kasumi awakens to her persona. There is only one fight to do here though, which isn't really anything special. At this point I also started going fishing regularly. The reason for that is the price we get for 100,000 points, which is an accessory with Ali dance on it. This halves the enemy's hit rate against a party member wearing it, and could be a huge help going forward. Considering we don't really have to do much during evenings anyways, might as well try to grab the accessory for extra safety. We grab the Halloween accessory from TV shopping for Fire Emblem on, and soon afterwards Akechi joins the party and we start infiltrating Saya's palace. We upgrade the party's equipment and also customize shotguns for the entire party. While they don't work on bosses, they can be pretty helpful against mini-bosses, with shock giving us a lot of opportunities to add technical damage on enemies. The first fight is against 2 Queen maps. We get a stun on using our new ailment guns, and then use technical damage to win the battle, nothing big to mention here. The party gains another level, and we move on to the next battle against Ganesha. Ganesha is pretty tanky, but luckily we can make use of ailments once again. Joker does good damage with Psyodine, and once we got Shotgun, the battle is pretty much won. The first real mini-boss battle in this palace is against Neberos, and oh boy is this guy annoying. Again we try to get status elements on, but either he's just straight immune to shock, or we're just getting extremely unlucky. What's even worse though is that he likes to spam Brain Check, which can brainwash your entire party. And if this wasn't bad enough already, if you don't cure it in time, he loves to follow it up with Mopsio, which deals technical damage on everybody inflicted with it. He also has access to Maragion, which deals huge damage as well. Needless to say, I underestimated this battle quite a bit, and after another Mopsio, the party goes down and we game over again. Attempt number 2 I took a lot more careful. This time we also got lucky on Brain Check, which was cured immediately. As you can see, our damage output is quite low if we're not able to work with ailments, so we lower both the enemy's attack and defense as well. Second Brainwash hits both Joker and An, but luckily we still have Energy Shower on Makoto. A charged triple down deals pretty good damage, and after a few more attacks, the battle is won. We gain another level, and continue on to the next battle against Yadayu. Unlike Neberos, this one can be shocked, so once we got the ailment on, it's smooth sailing from there. We gain another 2 levels and are already at level 43 now. The reason I mentioned this specifically is because at level 43 you gain access to, in my opinion, one of the strongest personas in the entire game. A few of you may already know who I'm talking about. It's none other than the great Girimekala. Seriously, this persona is ridiculous. It repels all physical damage, nulls curse, and resists fire while only being weak to bless. Getting access to Giri at level 43 is a godsend for every challenge run, and I expect it to do great work in this one as well. The next mini-boss coming up is Norn, and this one is quite interesting. Usually you want to try and beat it within a single turn, since it can heal itself back to full again after using the Arahan. After Norn knocks down Ryuchi with Guardine, we get a lucky crit with Makoto, including a Dizzy proc, so the following triple down is already enough to take it out. After a quick detour to the courtroom, we continue in the palace with Rajanaga coming up next. While the mini-boss repels electricity attacks, we can still get a shock proc on using our ailment weapons. And yeah, with that the fight becomes pretty simple. Once Rajanaga recovers, just shock it again and go back to work until the enemy is down. We gain another 2 levels and are off to the last mandatory battle of the palace, which is the solo Joker Gauntlet. And honestly, this one is laughable, even with our restrictions. During Battle 1 against the two Ganesha, we just equipped Giri Mikala and put it on auto since they only attack with physical attacks. Battle 2 against the Rangdas is one after a double Makuga before they even get the chance to attack, and for Battle 3 we just put on Giri again and watch Tora wreck himself on auto. We gain another level and are now ready to battle Sai herself. Until we get to the final day though, there is still some stuff we have to do. First of all, we start ranking up Haru's Confident. The vegetable garden isn't really any useful since we're not allowed to use items anyways, and you can't sell grown veggies either, but the Arcana boost is nice, and after Haru played an integral part against Okumura, I'll make sure to rank her up in case another situation like this arises at some point. We also have the last rank on Akechi coming up with the battle against him. While this is technically an optional battle, it doesn't give any experience, so I guess we can count that one. Giri Mikala once again is a really good choice here, since Giri repels physical and nulls curse. Unfortunately, it's also weak to bless, and Akechi likes to use Kuga as well. Luckily, he follows a very strict pattern for the most part and is easily readable. With all that said, we still lost on our first attempt because of an unlucky Megidola that I was not expecting yet. On attempt number 2, I played it a little more careful and tried keeping myself healed up whenever I anticipated a Megidola coming up. While trying to heal up was quite the hassle at times, it worked out eventually and we win the battle against Akechi and complete his Confident as well, at least for now. At this point we have also gotten enough points at the fishing pond to buy the Fish God's badge for Ali Dance, and a few days later, the final showdown with Sai is upon us. Phase 1 of the fight is pretty much scripted. Watch the roulette, lose, catch her in the act of cheating, and transition into phase 2 where it gets more interesting. After spinning the roulette, she will always use spells of that kind, while taking neutral damage from the opposite element. She usually rolls an element that one of the party members is weak against, and then tries to get one more. In this case, we got kind of bad luck that it went to wind, since Ryuji's magic stat is so low that he doesn't really do a whole lot of damage with his spells. The evade passives are also putting in quite some work here. Party members will get struck occasionally, but overall, those are a huge help here. The second roulette spin lands on ice, which is pretty much perfect. An is by far our strongest mage, so we're able to put out a lot of good damage on Sai. After hitting a weakness, she will also Dekasha the party occasionally, which is annoying, but nothing too bad for the most part. A few more turns later, she rolls Almighty, at which point she's neutral to all elements, but gets access to quite some nasty attacks. Because of this, I wanted to end the battle quickly since the party probably won't be able to heal up for very long. And watching the damage from Brutal Impact, you can see why. An barely survived on 2 HP, and that was with an attack debuff and a defense buff up. Luckily at this point she doesn't have a lot of HP left. Makoto keeps healing the party, while Choka buffs and Ryuji and An are trying to get some damage in. Just as Sai was about to go down, she gave it her last shot by Berserker dancing and triggering the Endure on everybody that got hit. The reason I got lucky there was because I switched to Byakko right before that just for the physical damage. Byakko at the same time is also the only persona in my stock to have Endure on it, so we would have game over tier if I equipped anything else. Anyways, Sai goes down the following turn and we won the battle on our very first attempt. This is something we haven't managed ever since Wakaba, which, to be honest, is by far the easiest boss in the entire game, so yay I guess. The party also gains another level, and after watching a crap ton of cutscenes, we're pretty much already off into the next palace to take down Shido. The first fight against Cerberus is no big issue. Again we apply shock, and then just beat on it until it's down. We get another level, max out Haru's Confident, and prepare for the rest of the palace. Remember, we have to complete it within a single day, and with no access to items or any other SP regenerating means, this is going to be very interesting because Shido's palace is long. Since there are a ton of dangerous mini-bosses here, I'd say we jump right into the first one against Yamato no Orochi. This one likes to charge up with Concentrate and then throw out a Mabufudine. Luckily though, it is not immune to ailments, so once again we use Shock to our advantage. The damage output is still scarily low. If this is a sign of things to come, this could become a big problem very quickly. Anyways, Even though it takes forever, we take Yamato no Orochi down rather easily after keeping it locked down with shock throughout most of the battle. Futaba's supercharge right at the end definitely helped quicken things up a little. We also skipped the will seeds on the way for now. This is literally our only means to regenerate SP, and considering the amount of battles we still have to do, we might want to save them for later on when the party is going to severely lack SP. Letter of recommendation number 2 is against Forneus and is incredibly annoying. I find it really cool that Forneus is actually a high level persona in P5, but this fight is just brutal. While you can apply ailments onto it, they don't stick for long since Forneus seems to have insta-heal. And just like with Debiros in the previous palace, Forneus also loves to spam brainwash attacks and follow it up with Mopsiodyne. While Forneus is weak to electricity, this is not as big of a help as I was hoping. Just like in the last fight, the damage output is not very high again either. Ryuji still not having access to Madarame at this point of the game is making quite the difference. In a normal setting, Ann is still by far our best DPS option, so whenever we get the chance to baton pass, we pass over to her and let her do her thing. Even though this fight is incredibly annoying, we eventually whittle down its HP and manage to squeeze out a victory. While we do get to level 50 afterwards, I really don't like the looks of this. This palace is already becoming a problem, and I doubt it's going to get any easier anytime soon. We also get a few forced encounters against Baphomet on the way. Those are usually not a big deal though, since they can be shocked, and with the Bless weakness, you can also try to insta-kill them with Hama spells. Next up is the fight against Hanuman and the 2 Garudas, and I have a feeling this will be similar to Forneus just before. Hanuman loves to enrage the Garudas, which is nice since they're taking way more damage that way. At the same time, they're also dealing much more damage, so you still want to get rid of them quickly. Hanuman himself also likes to use some nasty physical attacks, and while he is weak to ice, he also has evade ice, so hitting him can be quite tricky at times. Luckily, we can stun the Garudas, which makes dealing with them a little easier. Party members also go down regularly here, which is bad since Joker is the only one with access to revive spells. Once Hanuman is by himself, the battle becomes more manageable. He can still deal quite some damage and is rather tanky, but we're not really in danger of game overing any longer. After missing several times trying to hit the ice weakness, I just gave up on it and tried focusing on other damage. Physical seems to work a lot better here, especially when you can get a lucky critic again. Eventually we were able to get him down, but as you might be able to tell, my SP are going down with it, and we still got 3 more battles coming up, so I have no idea if we got enough SP to carry us through the rest of the palace. Let's continue on with letter number 4, which is against Oberon and 2 Titanias. I do remember this battle being a little easier, but oh boy am I wrong in this instance. Even though you can shock them, it's not a cakewalk at all. Oberon loves to spam Dizzy on the party, and if you manage to beat the Titanias, he's just going to summon new ones. Oberon himself is weak to Nuke, while the Titanias are weak to Psy Magic, but with Dizzy on the majority of the party, hitting them is not that easy. Still, we try to get Shock on, and then go back to work using technical damage. Triple Down comes in really handy here as it does lots of damage to the enemies. Another charge Triple Down almost takes him out, but he manages to summon new Titanias, so we have to go through the entire grind again. Again, we try to get Shock on, and then get technical hits in for some extra damage. After a while, we win the battle and gain another level, but at this point the party's starting to get real low on SP and we only got 1 more will seed to get some back again. Considering we still have to go through 2 rather long battles, I don't know if this will be enough, but let's find out. The last ladder fight is against Angyo-Ki, who opens up with Maegon and already does huge damage. Luckily his attack pattern for the most part is pretty scripted. He will always start with Maegon, then use Rakunda. On turn 2 he will use Myriad Slashes and Foul Breath, and on turn 3 he will use Mudon, followed by Tarokasha. Again, Giri Mekala is the perfect counter for the enemy since Choker repels physical and nulls Curse, therefore he can't take any damage in this battle. And while his attack pattern is scripted and easily readable, this fight is still a huge pain since we barely deal any damage. Unlike most other mini-bosses in this dungeon, he also seems to be immune to all status ailments, so we got no way for damage control and technical damage either. The incoming damage is manageable for the most part with buffs and debuffs up, but the party is slowly starting to run out of SP. Once you get him to below half HP, he will also start to use Heat Riser instead of Torokasha, which makes this even worse. We get pretty far into the battle, but eventually we run out of SP and Joker has to switch to Haridi for Samara Recarm to revive fallen party members, and at this point it's game over once again. I tried this fight a couple of more times, but the result was always the same. Either we got wiped due to Joker having to revive party members, or we ran out of SP and eventually can't heal up anymore. Just when I thought that we might be stuck here for a long time, I noticed something else though. Ongyoki is usually resistant to physical attacks and repels both bless and curse damage. This version seems to be neutral to physical damage though, so I quickly checked on the wiki and would you look at that, this version of Ongyoki is actually neutral to everything. This means we can repel some of his damage from Maegon back at him using Belphegor, and this is what got me the victory on the following attempts. A reflected Maegon does almost 400 damage, and considering we usually deal around 100 to 150 damage to the mini-boss at best, this is a huge help. Not only do we deal more damage this way, but because of this, the fight also becomes much shorter, so we have an easier time keeping up with healing and not having to be afraid that the party is going to run out of SP. Another reflected Maegon seals the deal and we gain another level, plus our last letter of recommendation. But everybody who played this game before knows that we are not quite done yet because we still have the fight against Akechi coming up. The first phase of the Akechi fight is against two of his ads. Desperation is nasty since the enemies deal a lot more damage that way. On the other hand, they also take a lot more damage, so we try to quickly get through this phase. Cerberus being weak to electricity certainly helps here since we can use a baton pass to deal some nice damage and take them out quickly. The damage they deal is huge, but luckily we got Endure on all of our party members, so we should be fine. Once both of them are gone, we fight Akechi himself. This version of Akechi uses pretty much the same attacks as in the Confident rank 8 fight earlier. Akechi tries to snipe Joker with a Kuagon since this is literally the only attack that can hurt Joker, but we managed to get a lucky dodge. I'm also trying to buff and debuff as little as somewhat possible since the party is getting really low on SP at this point. His Megidolaon, while doing good damage, is not as dangerous as I first anticipated, and Akechi eventually knocks himself out before transforming and entering the last phase of the battle. In this phase, Akechi loses access to blast magic, so Giri Makala once again is the perfect counter here. Unfortunately, he can now also use Tetrakarn and Makarakarn to put shields up. Makarakarn is not an issue since we can remove that by casting a weak spell with a party member since they null the reflected damage anyways. For Tetrakarn, we usually go for a normal attack. I wanted to go for gun damage here at first, but since we got ailment guns, there is a chance that the reflected damage stuns the party member, which I obviously wanted to avoid. Luckily for the party, Akechi seems to heavily favor Joker in this battle as most of his attacks are directed towards him. With Giri equipped, a lot of the damage gets reflected back right at him, which makes this battle much more manageable than I thought at first. Once Akechi starts using AoE spells though, the fight quickly goes downhill from there. Akechi eventually wipes on, so we have to revive him with Haridi, which leads to Joker taking much more damage and going down, resulting in another game over. Luckily, after hitting retry, we can't just continue in the last phase, so we don't have to go through all the previous shenanigans again. On attempt number 2, I got pretty lucky since Akechi focused on Joker even more than in the previous attempt. Also shoutouts to Wakefulness once again coming in during clutch times where Joker needed some SP badly. A charge triple down does like 700 damage and helps a lot getting him down faster. Futaba with the ultra charge came at the perfect time since Akechi just started doing his AoE magic, and with a few attacks from charged party members, Joker is able to take Akechi down with one last triple down, and after gaining another level, we're finally done with the mandatory fights in this dungeon. I wasn't expecting this to be a cakewalk or anything, but damn, we had a lot of problems in here and barely managed to scrape by, especially in the late fights. With that being said though, we are ready to tackle big boy Shido now. In order to prepare for the upcoming boss fight, we've used a couple of new personas. Unfortunately, I forgot to record that part, so we will go through those once we get to use them in the actual battle. Shido has a total of 3 fights divided into several phases. In fight number 1, he starts off in beast form where he reflects all physical damage, so magic is the way to go here. He also deals quite some damage, even with buffs and debuffs up. Luckily both Joker and An do some pretty nice numbers with the magic as well. A concentrated Aridain from Seth, who is one of our new personas, deals like 600 damage. The most annoying attack in this phase is probably Wage War, which can rage your entire party. And if that wasn't enough, he also loves to negate your buffs using the Kasha. Halfway through the phase, I forgot to renew Taronda and Shido promptly wiped both girls. Eventually, we are able to recover, but ideally you want to avoid something like this from happening. Once you are a third through his HP, he switches into Wings form where he will resist all magic attacks but take neutral damage from physical attacks, so now it's Ryuji's time to shine. Unfortunately, he hasn't learned Charge yet, which would make things quite a bit easier, but with Joker at his side, the two of them deal pretty good damage. Joker having access to both Charge and Concentrate certainly helps a lot in battles like this. A charged Myriad Slash from Okinonushi, which is another one of the new personas, can deal over 1000 damage if you get 3 hits, so we definitely got that part covered. In his last phase, he switches into Pyramid form where he now takes neutral damage from everything, but also starts charging up for a huge Pyramid Blast attack, so you want to try to end the battle as soon as possible. Fortunately for us, it takes him 2 turns to charge up the attack, so after throwing all the party's damage at him, we manage to beat him and win the first fight before he can get his attack off. Fight 2 is now against Human Shido. In this one he loves to buff himself with Heat Riser, so the Kasha is a great way to negate that immediately again. When it comes to attacks, he focuses mostly on physical damage, while also doing Tyrant's Purge, which instantly kills a party member. The attacks in this battle also follow a very specific pattern where he will buff turn 1, use Makuga on turn 2, and Bloodbath on turn 3. Bloodbath especially is bad since it comes with a chance to fear the entire party. If you don't cue the fear in the following turn, he will follow it up with Mopsiodyne, which hits technical damage on all characters inflicted with fear, and with the extra turn he usually likes to wipe a character with Tyrant's Purge. For attacks, we do pretty much the same thing as in the previous fight, though I find that Ganesha, the third of our new personas, does more consistent damage using Tempest Slash over Okinonushi's Myriad Slashes. With all that being said, we slowly get Shido's HP down until he transitions into True Shido, which is his last form. True Shido usually starts the battle with Tyrant's Judgment, where he wipes 2 characters already. I tried to recover using some Madarame Charm, but the following heatwave does enough damage to wipe Joker, and we get yet another game over. Good first try, still a lot of room for improvement left though. Similar to Akechi earlier, we can retry starting at Human Shido, so we don't have to go through the entire thing again at least. On the very next attempt, we make it back to True Shido, so it seems there is some good consistency to part 1 of this fight at least. Now, the Shido fight probably wouldn't even be that bad, but looking at my party's SP, you can see that the biggest issue is not being able to keep up with buffing and debuffing due to the party running out of SP. Eventually though, we get Shido down to below half of his HP, at which point we only got 2 party members alive. But it doesn't even matter, because this is where the fight starts to fall apart within seconds. The insta-kill attacks on the remaining party members are enough to wipe them, and it's back to the drawing board. At this point I also noticed that True Shido's attack pattern is a lot more scripted than I first thought. He will always open up with Tyrant's Judgment and Heat Rise on turn 1, physical attacks on turn 2, and from then on he will do magic attacks on even turns and physical attacks on odd turns, with some buffs sprinkled in as a second action. Once he drops below 75% of his HP, he will also add Heat Riser and Charge in as a third turn. The magical attacks also follow the pattern as he always starts with Bless, then Fire, Ice, Wind, and Electricity. While this does make it a little easier for Joker to prepare for the upcoming attack, it doesn't necessarily help making the party survive any easier. While Human Shido seems to be very consistent, it took me 4 more tries to get back into phase 2 of the True Shido fight at half HP, this time with all party members still alive. With SP pretty much gone on everybody though, getting through this fight is a nightmare. We got almost no buffing options, and AoE healing is running out as well. But this isn't even the worst thing. Remember the 2 scripted insta-kill attacks that wiped me at the previous attempt? Well, if you survive that, you will follow it up with Tyrant's Wave, which does heavy almighty damage to the entire party, and at this point it's pretty much over. While Joker did survive, and we would have even been able to transition into the last phase due to a repel, this is a reset, since all other party members are down. Due to our max party member rule, everybody has to be alive by the time we transition into his last phase, so we did make some progress, although not really. Once again, I was starting to get a little desperate. No matter how much luck we're getting, due to the party not being able to properly buff or heal at a certain point anymore, there is no way to get the entire party through this fight. Then I remembered something really useful, something we could have actually done the entire challenge already, but pretty much never did because I simply forgot, since it's something I never did much in my previous playthroughs either. Hifumi's Confidant grants us the option to switch party members mid-battle, and while we can only do that on Joker's turn due to not being able to max her Confidant, this could be the solution to the puzzle. Since Makoto is pretty much out of SP anyways by the time we get to True Shido, we switch her out for Morgana. Not only does Morgana have full SP, but due to his passive ability which doubles the effect of healing spells, we also have a much easier time keeping the party's health up. The only problem with that? We haven't used Morgana since Madarame's palace, and since he was never needed, I also never upgraded Morgana's equipment, so he's still stuck with an armor that has like 60 something defense. This results in Morgana getting easily wiped on Shido's turns, and with Morgana down, the battle becomes a lot more dangerous again. Still, with all that though, we make it to 50% of Shido's HP on the very first attempt with Morgana, but once again, Tyrant's Wave does way too much damage without any defense buff, and we game over. This gave me some ideas though, so I reloaded an earlier save before sending the calling card. We upgrade Morgana's armor, and also give him the Captain Badge to increase his max HP by 30%. We also change our starting lineup and now start with Morgana instead of Makoto. The earlier parts of the battle should be fine without Maruki thanks to Morgana's increased healing, but I am not sure I can survive Tyrant's Wave without a defense buff, so we save Makoto for later. With those changes set, we go back into the palace and give it one more shot. Like just mentioned, we now start with Morgana instead of Makoto, but other than that, pretty much everything stays the same, so let's skip forward to the more interesting parts. Once we get to True Shido, Morgana is pretty much out of SP anyways, so we switch Makoto back in, and with full SP, maintaining buffs and healing is much easier. At this point, I explained pretty much everything about this fight, so let's skip over once we get him to half HP. We make sure the party is buffed and healed up, and while we lose Ryuji, the damage on Tyrant's Wave is much more manageable now. Not only that, the following turn we have already done enough damage for Shido to eject everybody but Joker from the battle. At this point, we pretty much won already. Shido is always scripted to use his attacks within a very specific order. Since the last magic attack in the previous phase was Mabufodyne, he will now start with electric damage. From here on out, his next attacks will be Debilitate, Wind, Heat Riser, Fire, Bless, Ice, Heat Riser, and then start all over again. This was also the reason why I've used a couple of new personas before coming in here. I wanted to have either a Repel or Drain for Fire, Ice, Electricity, and Wind damage. With a setup like this, there is basically no way to lose anymore, and after reflecting quite some damage back at Shido, he is down and the battle is won for good. Now this was a boss fight that definitely lived up to its name really well. We gained 2 more levels, going to level 56, and return to the real world for now. Considering there is literally nothing useful we can do during free time anymore, we just go to work all day every day to get our bank account numbers bumped up a little, and skip forward to Christmas Eve. This is literally our first visit in Mementos other than the tutorial one, so we have to go down all the way now. If you come here on December the 24th, all the mini bosses left are also gone, which is why we couldn't advance any earlier than this. Once we made it all the way down, the first mandatory fight is against 2 Melchizedek. Nothing special here. God's Hand hits like a truck, but they aren't very bulky, and we can also work with elements again. Battle number 2 is against two Thrones who are weak against nuke magic, so damage is not a problem here. They do seem to be immune against stun, or maybe I just got really unlucky. Either way, we work with sleep this time around. Other than that, no big deal, hit weakness, baton pass, and deal damage until down. We get another 2 levels and get to 58. At this point, Ryuji finally learns Madarame, so offensive buffs are going to be his thing from now on going forward. Madarame and Charge are the main reasons he's on my starting team, so it's nice that he finally gets access to one of them at least. The last mandatory fight is against 3 Dominions, and this one gave me more trouble than I like to admit. They like to spam wind magic, which Ryuji reacts very allergic to. While they are weak to electricity, we weren't able to get them down during a single turn, and then we almost got wiped thanks to a concentrated Madarame. Luckily Joker survived thanks to Seth, and we slowly bring the party back up again before winning the battle. We also go to level 59 right before the next boss fight, which is actually perfect timing. I was hoping this would be enough, since at level 59 we can now perform a multi-fusion and get ourselves a trumpeter. We're not going to fuse it immediately though, since we need the max Arcana boost from the Full Confident to get it to level 65 during fusion already. Since the first fight against the Holy Grail is scripted anyways, we skip that and jump right into the next part. We now maxed out the Full Confident, so we get ourselves a trumpeter, and would you look at that, the math perfectly checks out, and we finally get access to Debilitate. Coming up next are the Archangels, starting with Uriel. Uriel starts the fight by summoning 2 angels, which oftentimes is an advantage since we can hit their weakness and get a baton pass off. In this scenario though, it can be a pretty big problem. The reason for that being that if Angel gets low on HP, it will use Reconsidered to fully heal Uriel. Therefore, you want to try to take them out as quickly as possible. Luckily you can also hit them with status elements, which makes it a lot easier. Uriel himself mostly goes for AoE physical attacks, which don't do that much damage if you got your buffs and debuffs up. We knock down the angels, get a baton pass going, but unfortunately only wipe one of the 2, and here is the mentioned Reconsidered, so yeah, definitely make sure to take them out in time. Luckily Uriel himself doesn't have a whole lot of HP, and Joker and An especially are dealing decent amounts of damage with their attacks. The second time an angel gets summoned, we make sure to not make the same mistake again, and after a few more attacks, Archangel number 1 is down already. We get 2 more levels, and continue on with Archangel number 2 Raphael. Raphael does not summon any adds, but he likes to spam Heat Riser and Charge before going for physical attacks. Again we put our buffs and debuffs up, and start going to work. Since he's mostly attacking with sword stance, there isn't really much to worry about considering it's only a single target attack that also likes to miss with Debilitate on him. He is tankier compared to Uriel, but the fight goes a lot smoother, and after some concentrated attacks, he goes down as well. Just like before, we gain 2 more levels, and An also gets access to Concentrate. With her having Fire Boost and Fire Amp, she's probably going to become our biggest damage dealer now. I also gotta admit, I am surprised by the amount of levels we get in a setup like this. In my Persona 4 Golden Mandatory Battles only run, the party's average level at that time was like 45 or so. Anyways, we continue on with the next Archangel, Gabriel. Unlike Raphael, who mostly focused on physical attacks, Gabriel is pretty much magic only. The fight is still very similar to the previous one since Gabriel also doesn't summon any adds. The only thing to watch out for here is that Gabriel can get additional turns if she hits a party member with the weakness. Luckily, this didn't happen a single time since the evade passives are putting in good work, and a few turns later, the battle is won already. We gain another level to 64, and Ryuji now also gets access to Charge, so his moveset is complete now for the most part. With that, we continue on to the final Archangel, Michael. Like Uriel before him, Michael summons 2 angels at the start of the battle, but since we gained several levels since the last time we had to fight them, getting rid of the angels is a little easier now than just minutes before. Again we can work with weaknesses and ailments to make sure we can avoid another Reconsidered. Michael himself can negate his debuffs and also likes to use Megadolaon, but as long as your defense buffs are up, the incoming damage is manageable. Towards the end of the battle, it got a little close when my defense buff and debilitate ran out at the same time, giving Michael way more damage with Mementos. But luckily, everybody survived, and the battle was over just a few attacks after. We cap out at level 65 before heading for the big boss fight against the Holy Grail / Yaldabaoth. I did think about fusing new personas now that we gained quite a few levels, but I was pretty satisfied with my setup for the most part, so off we go. The Holy Grail fight is nothing special. We send off Ryuji to cut the cables since I wanted to keep Makoto for buffs and heals, and on for damage. Once the cables are cut, the Holy Grail charges up for Eternal Light, and I probably should have defended on this one since it one-shot Joker and yeah, might want to watch out for that next time. On the second attempt, I made sure to guard with Joker. We can technically attack with everybody else since they have Endure anyways, but in the end it was only Makoto that got put to 1 HP. After this, it's just a couple of more attacks and the Grail is down, initiating the real boss fight against Yaldabaoth. Now, the first phase of Yaldabaoth is pretty simple where he will only use Arrow of Light, which most of the time gets dodged thanks to Debilitate. The battle only gets interesting once he starts summoning his other parts. The strategy here is to basically ignore them and only go for AoE damage if the party member using it nulls the same element in case of a repel. While the incoming damage starts to pick up quickly the more parts of Yaldabaoth are up, we can't really spend too much time getting rid of them considering we only have a very limited amount of SP that we can work with. The inflicted status elements are annoying, but they aren't really the biggest issue. The party basically charges and concentrates first and goes for attacks after. Makoto is on defense buff and healing duty and also throws in an attack every now and then if she has the opportunity to do so. This strategy works out pretty well throughout most of the fight. Similar to the Shido fight, we switch out Makoto for Morgana once she runs out of SP. This fight takes pretty long, so I expect the majority of party members are going to run out of SP before we can get this over with. Once Yaldabaoth starts charging for his big attack, we try to burst him down before he gets the chance to unleash his attack. Since Ann is also out of SP at this point, we switch her out for Haru to squeeze out the maximum damage possible. I was pretty sure that the damage won't be enough, so we switch to a persona with Endure on it and eat the big Race of Control attack. Only Morgana had his Endure triggered so far, so he went down, and Joker even managed to completely dodge the attack. We bring Mona back, and literally the follow-up turn we already do the damage needed to win the fight. We put the world's largest bullet through his head, shoutouts to my gun damage only run, and save the world on the very first try. Well, first try Yaldabaoth. I did game over against the Holy Grail before, but let's just pretend that never happened, okay? We spent Christmas Eve with our waifu, and after a ton of complicated cutscenes, we end up in Maruki's palace, now with Akechi and Kasumi on our side. The first fight against the two Macabre is easy. Akechi's Mementos takes them out almost immediately, and after Kasumi follows up with the Bless weakness, we're already done again. The second encounter against the two Belial is a bit more tricky. They are pretty tanky, and considering they are immune to physical damage and also dodge blast attacks, our options are rather limited here. They also like to inflict despair on the party, which is a problem since they despair both Joker and Akechi, so we got no way to heal it anymore. Luckily, Kasumi manages to get a couple of hits in with Makuga and end the battle before worse things can happen. The next fight against Hastur is not much better either. We only got Joker and Akechi now, and Hastur not only likes to attack with AoE wind attacks, he also loves to put fear on Akechi, which in a two-character setting is quite annoying. Akechi is mostly here to try and keep the party alive with healing, while Joker charges up and throws out physical attacks afterwards. Once we got him down almost away, he heals up, and at this time we have to use the scripted Showtime attack to win the battle. After returning to the palace, we now have to fight Kasumi solo, and this battle is literally free as all she does is physical attacks, so we equip Girimekala and just put it on auto until the battle is won. The rest of the party returns, and now we have to battle Sandrilon and Byakuya. First thing we do is replace Akechi with Makoto to restore our A-team, and then start going to work. Similar to the Archangels before, the boss can get herself healed, this time by absorbing the ads, so ideally you want to avoid that from happening. Luckily, the Byakuya are weak to nuke attacks, so we can use that to our advantage to get a baton pass going. Sanrio doesn't have a lot of HP, so after doing that several times, we win the battle and Kasumi returns to the party. We return to the palace on the following day and make sure to switch out Sumire for Makoto on her awakening battle. Can't have her suck away experience from party members that actually need it. The next mandatory fight is against Dionysus and Chimera, and considering you can work with status elements here, I don't really think I need to explain how this fight works in great detail. There is one more fight here to do in part 1 of the palace, and I have been corrected on those names a lot in previous videos, so I did my best to learn the proper pronunciation this time. In the following fight we battle Tsuchulain and Skathach. Skathach likes to attack with Mabufudain and use Makarakan on one more. Tsuchulain is mostly here to hit criticals with one-shot kill or Brave Blade. Luckily he's also weak to electricity, which makes things slightly easier. Inflicting ailments with the gun is quite a problem since Skathach has high counter. Luckily the same can't be said for Tsuchulain, so we use that opportunity to get a couple of technical hits in. Tsuchulain is shortly gone afterwards, so Skathach is the only one left at the field at this point. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't even stay serious through this. It took me like 15 minutes to record this part since I always started laughing, so yeah, just don't mind me. Anyways, while the Mabufudain and the Makarakarns are annoying, at this point the fight isn't really dangerous anymore, and just as I say this, Ryuji wipes himself from a reflected Megaton raid. Great job. Anyways, a few turns later, the battle is finished for good, and we're done with part 1 of Maruki's palace. Next up, we need to head into Mementos again for another trip, but since there is literally not a single mandatory fight coming up, we just skip the entire segment. Before returning to the palace, we're getting the 3rd awakenings on our A-team. Unfortunately, we can't do that for Futaba since her rank is tied to a Mementos request, but at least for Ryuji, An and Makoto, it's not an issue at all. We mostly use the 3rd awakening for the slightly better stats and better elemental affinities since their ultimate skills take way too much SP to be worth considering. We also continue hanging out with Sumire in order to max her confidence as well. On days where we got nothing else to do, we go back to work to stack up some more cash. At this point I am pretty sure we got enough money for the rest of the run, but better be safe than sorry. A few days later, we return to the palace to finish securing the infiltration route. There are only 2 mandatory fights left in this dungeon, with the first one being against Surt. This one is quite the problem since Surt doesn't have any weaknesses, nulls or resists the majority of my party's elements, and is also immune to all kind of status ailments. An is pretty much useless in this fight since she can't use any magic attacks against the boss. For the most part, her job is to heal the party or apply Taronda. The main damage dealers are Choka and Ryuji, though Surt also resists physical attacks, so Ryuji can't do too much either. His attacks for the most part are not that big of an issue, but due to all the resists and nulls, it takes like forever to get his HP down. The entire fight took like 10 minutes, which is really long for anything that is not a major boss, but luckily we got through it without any further issues. The last fight before the final boss is against Siegfried. Unlike Surt, we can apply status elements here, and this is pretty important since Siegfried gets to act twice each turn and also likes to crit the party, giving him an additional action. Once we apply shock, the battle is pretty much as always though. Siegfried is very tanky, so the fight does take quite a while, but with shock we can control him pretty well, so we don't have to be afraid of a wipe or anything. Once Siegfried recovered, he actually used Maziodyne, which reflected back, and shocked himself, so good job buddy, well done. Anyways, after quite some turns, Siegfried is down and we have made it to the final boss. We go to level 75, and An also learns Blazing Hell just in time for the last battle of the game. We upgrade our party's equipment one last time and are off into the final fight of this challenge against Dr. Maruki. Most of you probably know how the battle works, but let me quickly explain for everybody who hasn't played this game in a while. In order to properly damage Azathoth, you need to get rid of the tentacles first. Each tentacle has a couple of weaknesses while nulling everything else. Similar to the boss fight against Okumura, we use that mechanic to build up a baton pass and deal maximum damage to the boss itself. In phase 1, Azathoth only uses physical and nuke damage, so there isn't much to worry about here. The only thing I quickly noticed is that one-shotting the tentacles is not as easy as I first hoped it was gonna be. Generally, phase 1 is not that dangerous though. Even a charged attack from Azathoth isn't enough to trigger anybody's Endure. In phase 1 he has roughly 5000 HP, afterwards he will transition to phase 2 and go up to about 10,000 HP. While the mechanics with the tentacles mostly stay the same, he now gains access to several nasty attacks, the worst of them probably being Evil Smile, which can potentially fear your entire party. Not only does this mean that party members might not be able to attack, this also means that you can't pass the baton to them, effectively losing out on quite some damage that way. He also likes to use Eternal Radiance, which can make characters dizzy. This can be bad, because if you don't heal it in time, he will follow it up with another Eternal Radiance, which will hit your party for technical damage. He also occasionally bans certain things for a turn, like not being able to attack with magic, heal, or baton pass at all, which throws another wrench into our plans. Overall, we're hanging in the battle pretty well for the most part. Due to constantly having to buff, debuff and heal though, the party is slowly starting to get very low on SP. If you remember the Shido fight, things quickly go downhill once we can't properly maintain our stats anymore. Because of this, we once again switch out Makoto for Morgana once her SP run out. Though we can't maintain a defense buff anymore, at least we can still stall out with healing for a bit longer. We also replace Ann with Akechi once her SP run out too, but this was probably a bad call because I forgot that Akechi has a blast weakness and Maruki's Eternal Radiance is blast damage. Eventually, Maruki is also going to charge for Tyrant Chaos, and unlike his charged attack in phase 1, this one does hurt quite a bit. In fact, the damage is high enough to trigger the Endure on everybody that got hit with it. Shortly afterwards, the combination of Eternal Radiance, Fear, followed up with Raining Seeds, is enough to take the party out and give us the first game over in this fight. While the fight was pretty messy all the way up until here, we did get pretty far already, so I was confident that we can do it if we get a little more luck. In attempt number 2, I decided to switch Sumire in for Ryuji once he ran out, since she can do physical attacks and also blast damage. Instead of Akechi, we switched Haru in for Ann this time around, since I wanted to avoid one more due to blast damage from Maruki. And while those changes did make a little difference, the fight was still super messy. Tyrant Chaos once again triggered Choker's Endure, and a couple of turns later, it's a 3-hit Raining Seeds that wiped Choker yet again. Without a defense buff, this is a huge lottery at this point. While it is possible to get through this fight with the current strategies, this felt way too inconsistent for me. Then I noticed something. Phase 2 Maruki, with the exception of Tyrant Chaos, only uses physical and blast attacks. Trumpeter natively repels blast, so if we can get repelled physical on him, Maruki pretty much can't hurt Choker anymore. Because of this, we refused our Trumpeter, but this time we use Girimekala as one of the ingredients for Red Rider, so we can transfer Repel Physical over to Trumpeter. And to be super safe, we also fuse a Cerberus, who gets access to Enduring Soul, and transfer that over to Trumpeter as well. With those changes, we are back into the Maruki battle, and we immediately skip over to phase 2 where the newly fused Trumpeter puts in quite some work. Futaba comes in with a supercharge right off the bat, so we can deal some nice damage early. The even bigger thing though is the change we made to Trumpeter. Due to him constantly reflecting attacks, we are doing a lot of damage to Azathoth just with the repels, since reflected damage does not get reduced by the tentacles. This not only means that we do more DPS, it also means that it is much easier to maintain our buffs and heals, since we get way deeper into the fight before running out of SP. Because of this, we're still able to have a defense buff up by the time Tyrant Wave hits. All those things combined lets the majority of the party take the hit without having their Endure triggered, which is already a huge thing. Shoutouts to another clutch Wakefulness right afterwards. While the second Tyrant's Wave a couple of turns later does wipe on, it doesn't matter at this point. Technically, we only need Choker alive at the end of this battle. While we do have a maximum party member rule, this rule only applies to battles where the party is getting experience to avoid leveling Joker up too high. Since this fight doesn't give any experience though, and we get an auto heal right afterwards, it doesn't matter if any party members are down by the end of it. Towards the end, only Joker and Ryuji are alive, but the repelled damage from Trumpeter is enough to end this battle and transition over into the next phase. At this point, I am pretty sure this is GG already, but there's still one more phase we have to go through before we're done. We now have to battle Maruki himself. He only has 3000 HP here, but takes reduced damage from pretty much every attack. Since the attacks also come from Azathoth and not Maruki, and there is no way to target Azathoth, there is also no way to reduce the incoming damage with debuffs. At least that's what it felt like when Joker applied Debilitate. Origin Light does huge amounts of damage and already triggers On's Endure. He will also use Revitalizing Soul once to sap 300 HP off every party member and heal himself, but afterwards he only uses single target attacks anymore. While those do trigger everybody's Endure, it's not a problem for the most part since we're only a few attacks off a victory, and even if it decides to target Joker several times, we still have the party members protecting him from a fatal hit if necessary. With that, we continue doing damage until Maruki's down and out for good, and at this point it is GG everybody. Maruki's last phase is scripted. At this point you can't lose anymore, and once we go through the turns, we shoot him in the forehead and have ourselves a nice little fist fight to complete the challenge for good. And that is it everybody. We beat Persona 5 Royal while banning pretty much anything that could be considered useful. This run was all over the place. Bosses like Madarame gave me way more problems than I first expected, and other bosses like Okumura weren't as bad as I first thought they were gonna be. Technically, you could probably also try this with the same rule set while also banning baton passes, since this was one of the main mechanics used in this attempt. Not so much for bosses, but for mini bosses and stuff. Banning ailment guns would be another option, but I don't think those actually played that big of a role since you can apply those statuses with magic as well. Also, for anybody who is still here, I did tweak my audio settings a little, so I think the mic sounds much better now than it was before. Let me know in the comments if you notice any difference. I do have a slight cold at the moment, so please excuse my voice from sounding weird at certain times. Anyways, this is probably going to be the last Persona 5 video for a while. I got a couple of other things planned for next year already, and I hope you're all looking forward to those as well. The channel has made some good progress this year, and I hope this trend is going to continue come 2024. Also, special shoutouts as always go to this video's Patreon URL. If you want to join the Patreon as well, the link is below in the video description. Becoming a Patreon gives you 48-hour early access to new challenge runs, among other things. But enough of the plugs for now. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed the run, and I hope to see all of you here next time again. Until then, take care.